He found out from a photograph on Facebook. Albert Greene didn't use Facebook much. His neighbor's daughter Linda had set it up for him 2 years ago so he could see photos of his grandchildren, and he checked it occasionally with the careful attention of a man operating machinery he didn't fully understand. He was checking it on a Sunday morning when the photo appeared. His daughter Caroline, white dress, a man Albert had never met, a small church somewhere he didn't recognize. The caption said, "The happiest day of my life," and there were 412 comments, and somewhere in all of that was the fact that Albert's daughter had gotten married yesterday, and he had not been invited. He sat at his kitchen table for a long time. He was 78 years old. He and Caroline had been close once, genuinely close, the kind of father-daughter relationship he'd seen other men envy. He had walked her to school for 6 years. He had taught her to drive in the parking lot of the Kmart that was now a furniture store. He had held her hand at her mother's funeral when she was 26, and he was 51, and neither of them knew how to be in a world without Miriam in it. Something had shifted in the last 3 years. He hadn't been able to name it exactly, just a gradual cooling, calls getting shorter, visits getting rarer, a new distance with no clear explanation. He had told himself it was just life. People got busy. He looked at the photo again. Caroline's smile was real. She looked genuinely happy. That was the part he kept coming back to. She was happy, his daughter, and he had not been there. He closed the laptop and sat in his quiet kitchen. Outside, a Sunday morning was happening without him. 3 years ago, Albert had said something he couldn't take back. He knew that was where it had started. He'd known it almost immediately after the words left his mouth, but pride and the particular stubbornness of a man who had spent 75 years being certain he was right had kept him from saying so. Caroline had brought James home for the first time in December 2021. Albert hadn't liked him, not for any specific reason, just a feeling, the instinctive wariness of a father meeting the man his daughter had chosen. James was quiet in a way Albert had read as evasive. He asked few questions and answered fewer. After dinner, Albert had said something to Caroline in the kitchen. Just the two of them, James in the living room. He'd said, "I don't trust him. Something's off." Caroline had gone very still. "He's shy, Dad. That's all. Shy and closed off are different things. You don't know him." "I know enough." She had looked at him with an expression he hadn't seen since she was 16. The look that meant a line had been crossed that she wasn't going to forget. Then she'd carried the dessert plates to the living room, and the evening had continued politely, and Albert had driven home thinking he'd been honest, and honesty was always right. He understood now that honesty delivered without care was just damage with good intentions. Caroline had pulled back after that. Not dramatically, no argument, no confrontation, just the slow withdrawal of someone who had decided to protect something precious from a person she loved but no longer fully trusted. He had waited for her to come around. She had waited for an apology. 3 years of waiting, and now a wedding photograph on Facebook. He called her Monday morning. He had spent Sunday doing nothing useful, sitting in his chair, standing at the window, making tea he didn't drink, going through 30 years of memories trying to find the exact shape of where things had gone wrong. Monday morning he picked up the phone. Caroline answered. She'd known he would call. He could hear it in her voice, that particular preparedness. "Dad, I saw the photograph," he said. A breath. "I know. You got married." Yes. He had planned to stay calm. He had genuinely intended to stay calm. "Caroline, I'm your father." "I know you are. How does a father not get invited to his daughter's wedding?" The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of 3 years of cooling and one kitchen comment and all the months of waiting that had followed. "You hurt me, Dad," she said finally. "What you said about James, it wasn't just an opinion. It was a judgment, and you never took it back. You never said you were wrong. You just waited for me to get over it." Albert looked at his kitchen table. "I was worried about you, he said. I know, but worried isn't the same as right. He thought about James in the living room that December night, quiet, answering few questions. He thought about the 412 comments on the wedding photograph. He thought about Caroline's smile. Albert asked. A pause. Softer now. He's very good to me, Dad. Albert closed his eyes. Then I was wrong, he said. About what I said. About how I said it. I was wrong, Caroline. She didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice had changed, something loosening in it. That's the first time you've said that, she said quietly. They came on a Saturday, 2 weeks after the phone call. Caroline had suggested it carefully, and Albert had said yes immediately before she could change her mind. He'd cleaned the house, made the pot roast Caroline had grown up on, set the table properly, the good plates Miriam had always insisted on for company. James walked through the door behind Caroline and shook Albert's hand, firm, direct, looking him in the eye. Albert looked back. In the kitchen before dinner, Caroline appeared beside him while he checked the roast and said quietly, "Just talk to him. Ask him things. He's not evasive. He just doesn't perform." Albert had nodded. At dinner, he asked James about his work. He was an engineer, bridges specifically, the kind of work that required patience and precision and an understanding of how things held together under pressure. Albert had listened, really listened, the way he hadn't in December 2021 when he'd been too busy having a feeling to pay attention to a person. James was not evasive. He was considered. He thought before he spoke, which Albert had misread as hiding something when it was actually just the opposite. By the end of dinner, Albert understood two things clearly. First, James loved Caroline. It was visible in the way he tracked her across a room without seeming to, the way he laughed at things she said, the way he'd reached across the table at one point and covered her hand with his for no reason at all except that she was there. Second, Albert had wasted 3 years on a wrong first impression and too much pride to correct it. "I owe you an apology," Albert said to James over dessert, "for what I said to Caroline about you in 2021. I was wrong." James looked at him steadily. "She told me," he said. "Thank you for saying so. Simple, clean, no performance." Albert understood now what Caroline had chosen. Caroline brought the wedding album on her second visit. She sat beside Albert on the couch and opened it across both their laps and went through it page by page. The small church in Vermont, James's family, her friends from work, the flowers she'd chosen, the dinner afterward at a restaurant that had a view of mountains. Albert looked at every photograph carefully. "You were beautiful," he said. "Mom's earrings," Caroline said quietly. "I wore them." Albert looked at the photo again. There they were. Small pearl drops, Miriam's, the ones she'd worn on their own wedding day. He hadn't noticed until now. He didn't speak for a moment. "She would have loved this," he said. "I know," Caroline said. "I talked to her before the ceremony. In my head." She paused. "I told her I wished you were both there." Albert looked at his daughter. "I'm sorry I wasn't," he said. "I'm sorry I didn't invite you," she said. Honest, direct. "I told myself I was protecting my day, but I think I was also punishing you. That wasn't right either." They sat with that, the mutual accounting of two people who had hurt each other and were finally willing to say so without keeping score. "I'd like to walk you somewhere," Albert said. "Someday, even if it's just down the street. I practiced, you know." Caroline looked at him. "Practiced?" "In the living room. The walk. I wanted to be ready." She stared at him for a long moment, then put her face in her hands. Not from sadness, he could tell. From the overwhelming particular feeling of being loved by someone in a way you hadn't fully seen until just now. "Dad," she said finally. "I know," he said. "I know." In June, Caroline and James had a small reception party. Not a redo of the wedding, just a gathering, a backyard afternoon, the people they loved in one place. Caroline's idea. James had agreed immediately, which told Albert everything about the kind of man his son-in-law was. Albert wore the suit he'd pressed 8 months ago. Caroline met him at the garden gate. She was wearing a summer dress, not the wedding dress, just herself, easy and happy in the June afternoon. She looked at his suit and smiled in the way that meant she understood exactly what it meant. She held out her arm. Albert took it. They walked together across the yard. Just 20 feet, just grass and sunshine and the sound of people talking nearby. And it was nothing like a wedding aisle, and it was everything he had practiced for in his living room on the days he'd still believed he would be there. At the end of the walk, James was waiting. He shook Albert's hand and then did something Albert hadn't expected. Pulled him briefly into a hug. Solid, genuine. Glad you're here, James said. So am I, Albert said. He meant it in more ways than one. He sat in a garden chair for most of the afternoon watching his daughter move through her own happiness, laughing, leaning into James, looking up at him with the particular ease of someone who had found the right person and knew it. Albert thought about Miriam, about their own beginning, about how badly it could have gone if someone had told him in the first month that she wasn't right for him. He thought about pride, about the cost of it, about the 3 years that were gone and the June afternoon that was here. You could not get the lost years back, but you could show up for the ones still coming. Albert Greene straightened his suit jacket, accepted a plate of food from a woman he didn't know, and stayed until the very last guest left. He wasn't going to miss another minute.